Hey, what's up everybody? I must preface this video by saying that by July, I will have been watching The Twilight Zone for a solid 10 years. It's probably my favorite show of all time, and one that I never minded investing a lot of time in. Back in the day, I used to watch this show whenever it came on TV, which was usually July 4th or New Year's Day. I used to actually buy blank tapes and then wait for one of those days so they'd show the marathons and I could see every episode. There were a lot of episodes that they never really showed on TV though, and I can see why. Because although the show was excellent, there were also a few bad episodes here and there. But today, I will be talking about my all-time favorite top 5 episodes of this iconic TV show. Number 5 for me is When the Sky Was Opened. The story is essentially about a group of 3 astronauts who come back from space after their transmission was lost over a long period of time. While they're recovering, one of the astronauts wakes up to find that the third astronaut is gone, and no one, including the other astronaut, remembers him at all. It was as if he was erased from existence. Then the second astronaut disappears, and the third astronaut is told that he flew the mission alone, and no one knows of his 2 colleagues. Then he himself disappears. Now, this one is definitely open for interpretation, but I think it mainly deals with people's attitudes at the time about space travel. They really didn't know what was out there, and they still don't. But at the time, people thought just about anything could happen upon leaving the Earth. It's an episode that thoroughly gives me the creeps every time I see it, and it was probably the first episode to really pull me into the show and get me watching. Number 4 is Third from the Sun. This story is about a man who lives in a society where it seems that nuclear war is about to erupt at any minute. This man works in a munitions factory that assembles the weapons and has become completely disillusioned with it and knows the world is about to end very soon. But he has an escape plan where he, his family, and his neighbor and his family will steal a newly constructed spaceship so they can leave the planet for good before war hit. What I really love about this episode is that there's a scene in which the main character and his neighbor are plotting to steal the spaceship in their kitchen when the main character's boss walks in. He pretty much knows what's going on but pretends that he's just enjoying a stroll and wanted to visit for a minute. This is a very tense scene and well acted, mainly due to Edward Andrews playing a really good evil antagonist. The story ends with the families getting into the ship and heading for a planet called Earth. Aside from the obvious irony of escaping one planet on the brink of war and going to another one on the brink of war, this episode is primarily played on people's fears of the Cold War, which I doubt that any other TV show had the balls to do at the time, which is why it's an awesome episode. Number 3 is Mirror Image. The next episode, which definitely deserves to be on this list, is Mirror Image, which is a fairly simple story, but one that is intriguing nonetheless. Basically, it's about a woman at a bus station in the middle of the night. She grows tired of waiting and asks the clerk behind the counter when the bus is supposed to come. And he angrily tells her that she'd already asked him minutes before. Confused by this, she soon gets more discouraged when she realizes that her suitcase keeps disappearing, then reappearing when she isn't looking. She then begins to think that she's either going crazy or someone who looks like her is trying to mess with her. She asks a man waiting for the same bus what he thinks is going on. He suggests that it's all in her mind and she's just tired, but she thinks that a person exactly like her in another plane of existence has jumped into their world and is trying to take over her life. Thinking the woman totally insane, he calls the police on her and she gets taken away. Then he goes to get a drink of water and finds that his suitcase is missing and sees that another copy of himself is running away with it. While this story would seem ridiculous to the unaided eye, it was probably the first episode on a TV show to speculate on alternative dimensions, or what we think is reality and what is really out there. Anyway, it's another open-ended episode which a lot of people don't usually like, but I thought it was a great episode just based on the story alone. Number 2 is Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? Now this episode deals mainly with people's fears of the unknown, and in this episode, it's a classic sci-fi theme of alien invasion. In this episode, 2 officers find a crashed space saucer and tracks leading to the diner nearby, where a bus driver and his passengers have stopped for dinner. The officers tell the people what has happened, and the bus driver notes that there is exactly one more person than there was in the bus. But no one can remember who was actually on the bus, and everyone starts accusing each other of being a Martian. Meanwhile, lights flicker on and off and the jukebox starts playing randomly. Now, this is another great episode that showed how easy paranoia could form in the minds of people when they are confronted with things that aren't easy to explain. And my number one favorite episode of Twilight Zone is A Stop at Willoughby. Now, before you start clicking off this video because you sharply disagree with me, let me tell you that when I first watched this show at the tender age of 15, my favorite episodes were all the ones you'd expect a casual fan of the show to like. Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, To Serve Man, Time Enough at Last were just a few of the episodes I liked. But as I grew older, episodes that had a little more depth were the ones I was more into. And that's why this is my favorite episode. The story is essentially about a miserable ad executive who hates his job with a passion, and also his boss, who constantly pushes him around and belittles him. He has an emotional outburst at work, then takes the train home and falls asleep, only to wake up in the 1800s in a town called Willoughby, which seems like paradise to him. He tells his wife about it, but she only scolds him for almost getting fired, and what follows is that the two have an argument about his career. He doesn't care about his job because it makes him unhappy, and she wants him to stay in it so she can maintain her social status as a rich wife. Meanwhile, after another lousy day at work, the main character has another dream about Willoughby, only this time he gets off the train in his dream and is finally happy. We then find out that he simply jumped off the train while sleepwalking and ultimately killed himself. While most fans of this show probably don't even like this episode, I can relate to it more and more each day. There was one time when I was having a completely horrible day at work when I quickly thought that being dead was preferable to toiling for some shitty boss. This episode correctly shows a man's demise at the hands of a horrible occupation that is downright soul-crushing and destroys one's level of confidence and self-respect. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to comment, rate, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.